don't think I need to remind you, but I'm going to anyway. This is the House Judiciary Committee. So this is our Capitol. And these people are behaving like children. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear them bickering before we can even get started. One lady's going to be complaining about how much time is on the clock, and RFK is going to look at the camera like, what the is going on? You know what I mean? Like, and then apparently he has some things to say. We'll see. I haven't seen the whole thing, so let's find out together what kind of stupidity is going on in our Capitol. I love it.
Excuse me, point of order. I know that witnesses usually have 5 minutes. I see 10 minutes on the board. Is it going to be 10 minutes for
We'll
every
give him 5
witness?
minutes, but we're pretty lax with this. We'll let him go for
We are?
a little, yeah.
I've seen you gavel down on quite a number of
We've
witnesses.
given senators and former Democrat members of Congress and all kinds
He's
of folks plenty of
neither.
time.
He's neither.
I'm just saying in past history.
Okay,
in
okay.
committee. But
Let's just watch the time for all the witnesses.
And if
then.
you want to cut him off and censor him some more, you're welcome to do it.
Oh, that's not my job. That's your job. Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can not want to be a witness?
Mr. Kennedy is recognized for his opening statement. We'll give him 5 minutes, more or less, and then we'll move to the next one. Mr. Kennedy, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could put 5 minutes on the clock then, not 10.
Ooh.
Started running.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to put aside my written statement for a moment and address one of the points that was brought up. I think an important point by the ranking member, that this body ought to be concerning itself with the issues that impact directly the American people. The rising price of groceries, 76% over the past 2 years for basic foodstuff, the war in Ukraine, the inflation issues, the border issues, many, many other issues that concern us all as a nation. We can't do that without the First Amendment, without debate. When I gave my speech, my announcement speech in Boston 2 months ago, YouTube, I talked about all those issues. I focused on grocery. I focused on the fact that working class people can no longer afford to live in this country. I talked about inflation, all the issues that deeply concern you, and that you've devoted your career to alleviating those issues. 5 minutes into my speech, when I was talking about Paul Revere, YouTube deplatformed me. I didn't talk about vaccines in that speech. I didn't talk about anything that was a verboten subject. I just was talking about my campaign and things, the conversation.
Verboten means
we ought to be happy
forgiven.
with each other as Americans.
Forbidden, sorry.
But I was shut down, and that is why the First Amendment's important. Debate, congenial, respectful debate is the fertilizer, it's the water, it's the sunlight for our democracy. We need to.
It's the backbone of our democracy. Just to reiterate, I know he's talking and he's got this handled, but I'm just saying, ooh, these fucking people drive me crazy just listening to it. It makes my head like there's like pressure, you know, like the vein is just. Oh my God.
To be talking to each other. Now, this is a letter that many of you signed, many of my fellow Democrats. I've spent my life in this party. I've devoted my life to the values of this party. There's 102 people signed this. This itself is evidence of the problem that this hearing was convened to address. This is an attempt to censor a censorship hearing. The charges in this, and by the way, censorship is antithetical to our party. It was appalling to my father, to my uncle, to FDR, to Harry Truman, to Thomas Jefferson, as the chairman referred to. It is the basis for democracy. It sets us apart from all of the previous forms of government. We need to be able to talk, and the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for. And I was censored, not
Some of the people that have pushed humanity forward the most have been huge assholes. Very difficult to deal with, but they were geniuses. You can really only get away with either being very, very good and an asshole, or very bad and very nice. So if you're not good at your job, you got to be nice. If you're extremely good at your job, you can be an asshole. But you cannot be bad at your job and be an asshole. So some of the most brilliant people, like Rickover, the inventor of the nuclear navy, is known as being a hard ass, someone that you didn't want to deal with, someone who would always challenge you. He said offensive things. People didn't like him. But it's people that it's people that other people don't like that push the boundaries and develop progress. And so if you censor people and make it so that they can't talk and anything offensive is no longer allowed, then you are killing progress. This is why America is ahead of everybody else. Exactly what he's talking about. Without it, we fall behind or we fall in line with everybody else. This is the differentiator between this country and even Germany has speech laws because of Hitler. And a lot of Europe has speech laws. This is one of the only places you truly had free speech. Now it's being censored by social pressure. You've got people, the mob goes after you and targets your family and your job and all kinds of things, and tries to cut you off at the knees so you can't survive. You need money to survive. So this is a huge problem. This is the end of America. If censorship is allowed to continue, this is the end of America. This is the end of your way of life. This is the end of your comfort. This is the end of us being on top. I guarantee it. Without anything else changing whatsoever, the end of free speech is the end of incredible American progress that no one else can keep up with.
just by the Democratic administration. I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored by as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration 2 days after it came into office. It ordered a truthful, and by the way, they had to invent a new word called malinformation to censor people like me. There was no misinformation on my Instagram account. Everything I put on that account was cited and sourced to peer-reviewed publications or government databases. Nobody has ever pointed to a single piece of misinformation that I published. I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government, that they don't want people to hear. And that's antithetical to the values of our country. After I announced my presidency, it became more difficult for people to censor me outright. So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda, where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me, because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war.
I want you to listen to this guy, and I want you to understand that this is antithetical to the Democratic Party. All the common sense things that he's saying, including, I guess, free speech, is anti-democratic. And so the party, if you are a Democrat, the party has left you behind if you believe in the Constitution and free speech and liberty, which is the foundation. It's in the word of liberal. So if you're a liberal who believes in like authoritarian type censorship, like in a dictatorship, in order to protect the cause, you're not a liberal. You're something else. You're an extremist. But you are not a Democrat. You're not a liberal. You're something else, claiming that you're liberal, but you're not. You're literally like part of the dictatorship. Maybe you're Marxist. I'm not sure what you are, but you are not a fan of liberty at all. And so don't pander to yourself and try to tell yourself that you are, because you're full of it.
War, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. And by the way, I want to say this while I'm on the record, that in my entire life, and why I'm under oath, in my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic. I have spent my life fighting my professional career, fighting for Israel, for the protection of Israel. I have a better record on Israel than anybody in this chamber today. I'm the only person who has publicly objected to the $2 billion payout that the Biden administration is now making to Iran, which is a genocidal program. I'm the only one who's objected to that. I've fought more ferociously for Israel than anybody. But I am being censored here through this target, through smears, through misinterpretations,
Lies.
Through lies.
Yep.
Through association, which is a tactic that we all thought we had been discredited and dispensed with after the Army McCarthy hearings in the 1950s. But those same weapons are now being deployed against me to silence me. I know many of the people who wrote this letter. I don't believe there's a single person who signed this letter who believes I'm anti-Semitic. I do not believe that. There is no evidence of that. I want to say something I think that's more important, and it goes directly to what you talked about, ranking member, which is the need, this toxic polarization that is destroying our country today. And how do we deal with that? We are more...
Not by fucking silencing debate, that's for sure. That's the only thing that gets us out of this. If we can come to the center and find things that we agree on, instead of perpetually pushing farther away from each other, so that we certainly will never agree on anything, and ultimately we're headed for a real big problem. Because once the talking stops, I'm not going to say it, but there's only one thing after the talking stops. And that's it. I think we all understand that. Anybody with half a brain understands what happens after people stop talking. Once you leave the negotiation table, if there's still disagreements, it's not good. And they don't care about your record. Everything is fucking fake and bullshit. So, yeah, you could live your whole life supporting something. They run a smear piece and quote a bunch of, out of context stuff, even fabricate stuff just outright. They don't care. They'll lie. It'll get clicks. If people don't like someone, run a smear piece. It'll get a ton of attention because that's what people want to read. They're putting out information that people want to see. They want to see bad information about someone that they're like, oh, he's not with our team. He must be bad. Sure enough, they present you information that he's bad, and you don't question it. You just take it at face value because that's what you want. You're looking for it. You're not doing like an unbiased search. You're not doing a search with the way that the information you want to find, and then reading that, and then doing a search. Is this person actually good? Is this completely fabricated? You're just doing the search. Why is he anti-Semitic? You're not saying why is he not? Is this fake? Has this been proven? You're getting information from one source. You're getting straight lies. Even if you get it from multiple sources, you can be getting lies. It's very difficult to understand the truth. It takes a lot of research and time to get to the bottom of what the actual history of a person is.
This kind of division is more dangerous for our country than any time since the American Civil War. And
Yes.
How do we deal with that?
Yep.
How are we going to... Every Democrat on this committee believes that we...
I do not believe that we've ever been more polarized and more extreme than when we're disagreeing fundamentally about how we should be treating other human beings.
We need to end that polarization. Do you think you can do that by censoring people? I'm telling you, you cannot. That only aggravates and amplifies the problem. We need to start being kind to each other.
Yep.
We need to start being
Love.
respectful to each other. We need to start
If you fight fire with fire, everything just burns. You need water. Someone needs to be the bigger adult and say, listen, we don't agree. So I'm going to stop pushing my agenda. I'm going to come to the center. I'm going to try to compromise with you. I'm not going to be extreme. I'm going to be moderate. And I'm going to request that you listen with an open mind. And can we find common ground in the middle to stand on together instead of getting as far away from each other as we can? This is going to end very badly. Everything he is saying is 100% correct, and I do not hear a lot of people saying it. Even outside the presidential race, I don't hear people talking about this. This is not, for a lot of people, this is not a real issue. It's not an issue that they feel is important. It's not urgent. It's not a big deal. Or they're not aware of it. I'm not sure which, but people that are just pushing further left and further right, you are driving a wedge between people in this country, and you are not going to like how this ends if we can't be reasonable with each other and compromise. This is going to end in divorce. That's what happens to marriage when two people can't compromise. It gets to the point where you have irreconcilable differences and you have to go your separate ways. And that's the end of America, you know? I mean, come on.
restoring the comedy to this chamber and to the rest of America, but it has to start here. My uncle, Edward Kennedy, has more legislation with his name on it than any senator in United States history. Why is that? Because he was able to reach across the aisle, because he didn't deal in insults, because he didn't try to censor people. He brought home people who were antithetical to what he believed in. He came home almost every weekend with people like Orrin Hatch to our house at the compound in Hyannisport. At that time, Orrin Hatch to me was like Darth Vader, because I was an environmentalist. And I was saying, why is Teddy bringing this guy home? But he knew that he was effective because he understood that comedy and respect and kindness and compassion and empathy for other people is the way that the only way to restore the function in this chamber. But more importantly, today we need to give an example in the leadership of our country of being respectful to each other. If you think I said something that's anti-Semitic, let's talk about the details. I'm telling you all the things that I'm accused of right now by you. And in this letter are distortions, they're misrepresentations. I didn't say those things. There's fragments that I said, but I denounce anybody who uses the words that I have said to imply something that is negative about people who are Jewish. I never said those things. And I want to point out also that the chairman pointed to Dennis Kucinich, who's fighting behind me. There is no two people in the country who feel more differently about American politics than these two people. And yet they were friends. Dennis attended his children's basketball games, attended his daughter's wedding. This is what we need, how we need to start treating each other in this country. We have to stop trying to destroy each other, to marginalize, to vilify, to gaslight each other. We have to find that place inside of ourselves of light, of empathy, of compassion, and above all, we need to elevate the Constitution of the United States, which was written for hard times. And that has to be the premier compass for all of our activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to...
Just absolutely incredible. Anyone who doesn't want this man to be president wants terrible things for America. This is the path. This is the path to reconciliation. This is the path to a return to a great America. And I'm not talking about make America great again. I'm saying a great America for all people, of all creeds, of all races, of all genders. We all win when things are good. Not just good for a certain section of people, not good for half of the country because you're winning. Your side is winning and oppressing the other half. And if you're voting for dividers, then this is what you're going to get. You know, I've heard him talk about this is a triple threat. You've got corporate money that's captured the government. You've got government officials that want to censor speech and are beholden to their donors. And so you got to fight. You got to speak with your pocket, your wallet. How you spend your money matters. You need to punish corporations that are supporting this. You need to let them know that you're not going to support this with your vote, and you're not going to support this with your money. And you're going to push back against this. And then, you know, so the vote is getting the incumbents out of office and getting new people in here, because these people, this has become just a mess. It's time to get rid of them all. All incumbents should be voted out ASAP. Just get rid of them. Break the back of this system that is just functioning perfectly. All the corruption is just so tightly jammed in there. It's all perfectly meshed together. Nope. Out. Bye. So you've got the corporate money control, you've got the governmental control, and then you've got our division at our level. So you need to deal with those two things, but we also need to interface with each other as human beings. We need to show each other compassion and respect. And we need to try to meet in the middle. We need to stop following these people as they lead us off into the distance from each other. We need to turn around and say, we're done following you. You guys are idiots. This is insane. We're going back to our people. We're going back to the regular Americans. These people aren't regular Americans. Most of them are millionaires. They're mostly rich. So you got rich corporations, you got rich legislatures. You got to have money to get in. It's part of the entry to the club. So you need to be backed by big money. So stop following them. Why are you following these people? Get rid of them, get new people in, and then as a byproduct of that, demand for election reform, pull the money out of the system so that rich people can stop capturing the government. These people should not be profiting from their office, and that's why we can't get anything with any integrity done in these hollowed halls that used to once be filled with people with integrity and morals and virtue and, you know, respectable people that cared about this country. These people are running this country into the ground. This is the end of America if we don't do something. And the other side's very organized. The Marxists, the leftists, the communists, things are happening. They've got the kids captured. The next generation needs to rebel against this, because otherwise they're indoctrinated. If they obey all the stuff they're being taught, they support this stuff. They want these people in office.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Gentlelady can state a point of order.
Point of order pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2, which Mr. Kennedy is violative of. I move that we move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy has repeatedly made despicable anti-Semitic and anti-Asian comments as recently as last week. Rule 11, Clause 2 says, whenever it is...
Just in case you can't read this, I'm going to read it out loud. Miss Wasserman Schultz is the person that is making false claims. I don't know if she's under oath. I don't know if it's perjury, but I'll look it up. I'll see what the claims are, because I cannot picture this guy insulting anybody. He wants unity, and they're just throwing lies. And the playbook, I mean, the playbook is simple. You first try to smear their image. Then if that doesn't work by just doing that, if you can't sabotage them doing that, you level false charges, legal charges at them. And if that fails, you suicide them. That seems to be how it works for the opposition. If you're not going along and you're causing problems, that's the playbook. And we're in the smear phase. Next is throwing some sort of charges and coming up with witnesses and saying, X, Y, and Z.
Is asserted by a member of the committee that the evidence or testimony at a hearing may tend to defame, degrade, or incriminate any person, or it is asserted by a witness that the evidence or testimony that the witness would give at a hearing may tend to defame, degrade, or incriminate the witness, and it goes on. Mr. Kennedy, among many other things, has said, I know a lot now about bioweapons. We put out hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are...
Lady making a motion or a speech?
I've made a motion to move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy's testimony...
Mr. Chairman, I
and
move
his
to table the
previous
motion.
statements-
The gentleman from Kentucky has moved to table.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote on the motion to table.
Well, let me ask the question. The question is on the motion to table. The gentlelady has asked for a roll call vote. The clerk will have to.
Okay, so I guess this is the issue. I'm not going to say this out loud because I don't want to get in any sort of trouble, but if you want to read it, you can pause it. It's right in here. It was one comment that he made that sounds a lot more like it was directed at the origin of the issue we had in the spring of 2020 that caused us to have to, be indoors for a while. I can't talk about that either. After the strike against my channel, I have to be careful on here, which is a real shame, but I'd rather be able to talk about most things than lose the ability to be on here at all. So it is what it is.
Step back for a second. The clerk will have to come in. We'll call the roll on the motion to table, and then we can get back to testimony.
I think the witnesses can sit in the chairs sitting behind.
I'll leave that up to the clerks. If the clerks are comfortable with that. Yeah, why don't we do that? Maybe we can go right down here.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Gentleman from Louisiana.
Is it the custom of this committee to censor viewpoints that we disagree with from witnesses?
Mr. Chairman, I have
not a point of order.
a motion on the table
There's a motion and the vote's been
to move into
called.
executive
House
session.
rules.
We're waiting
because
for.
Mr.
We're waiting.
Are you comfortable with these people being your leaders? I mean, the squabbling, the petty squabbling. This is how they spend their time. This is why no meaningful change has occurred. This is why we don't get anything good for the American people out of these houses. Is because they're just children. They're just arguing over nothing, just like we are. They can't get along because the bases are electing people that align with their views, and the views are continually divergent. So you're just going to get more and more division in these houses. You're going to get more and more division in the streets. You're screwed. We're all screwed.
Waiting for the clerks.
Is violative of
Waiting
Rule
for the
11, Clause 2.
Waiting for the clerks. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Issa. Mr. Massey.
Yes, to not censor.
Mr. Massey votes yes. Mr. Stewart. Yes. Mr. Stewart votes yes. Ms. Stefanik. Yes. Ms. Stefanik votes yes. Mr. Gates. Mr. Johnson of Louisiana.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson of Louisiana votes yes. Mr. Armstrong. Yes. Mr. Armstrong votes yes. Mr. Stubbe. Mr. Bishop. Yes. Mr. Bishop votes yes. Ms. Kamak.
Yes.
Ms. Kamak votes yes. Ms. Hageman. Ms. Hageman votes yes. Ms. Pasquette.
No, I want to follow the rules that the Republicans made at the beginning of this conference with these House rules, so no.
Ms. Pasquette votes no. Mr. Lynch? No. Mr. Lynch votes no. Ms. Sanchez?
No, because it's violative of the rules.
Ms. Sanchez votes no. Ms. Wasserman Schultz?
No to allowing a witness to degrade and
This is
defame
not speech
others
time.
and violate the rules and not have his testimony and degradation and amplified
Mr. Chair.
rather than given an executive session.
Ms. Wasserman Schultz votes no. Mr. Connolly?
No to the Soviet Politburo.
Mr. Connolly votes no. Mr. Garamendi?
No.
Mr. Garamendi votes no. Mr. Allred? Ms. Garcia?
No.
Ms. Garcia votes no. Mr. Goldman?
No to hate speech.
Mr. Goldman votes no.
Jeez.
Mr. Gates.
Mr. Gates? Aye. Mr. Gates votes aye.
Oh man, this makes me sick. It really does. We've got huge, huge problems. All right. Well, I was gonna do another section here, but I think this is on its own. This is terrible to watch. This might be worse than what's going on in the internet. Seeing that they're having a hearing about censorship, and then they're having an immediate vote to again censor. They just don't want debate. They don't want anybody to speak. They don't want to have to defend their opinions. Facts are very inconvenient. Logic is very inconvenient. And these are supposedly like adults who are in charge of our country. And they're behaving like this. It's very, very depressing. Anyway, I guess you guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.
I'm not suicidal. I would never kill myself.